All right. Welcome. This is it. It's the Dave Davidson stream. Uh, well, it's the Last Things live stream. So yeah, now the whole channel is called Last Things. Yeah, the channel, the show, whatever you want to call it, Last Things is now the name. And yeah, that's the name I've been using for my label, quote unquote label. Just whenever I self release stuff, it's been Last Things. Let's see. Got a new webcam. What's up, Nico? Nico's in the chat. Yeah, new webcam should be a little bit nicer, I guess. You can tell me. I feel like I look a little paler, but it's less grainy. So it's cool, yeah, it's a little higher def, but it's not adding on years to my apparent age, so that's good. What else we got? Oh yeah, I mean, new high speed. I'm plugged in on Ethernet now. No Wi-Fi shit. So this should be. I don't think you're gonna get blurry face on me, grainy face, blurry face. I think it's gonna be like we're taking it up to the next level with production value here. I don't see Dave in the waiting room, the so-called waiting room of the streaming thing yet. So yeah, I can just bullshit for a little bit while Dave comes on board. Yeah. Well, Dave, I'll introduce Dave a little bit. Dave is mainly known as the guitar player for Revocation, or one of the two guitar players of Revocation. Revocation, if you don't know, if you didn't come as a Revocation fan and you're just more of a me fan or something, Revocation is really one of the state-of-the-art death metal bands right now. And of course, there's so many subgenres of death metal. We can talk about what Dave, how Dave would. What's up, Travis? We'll talk about what Dave thinks. How he sort of identifies death metal subgenre wise. Is metal subgenre, is that like an identity group where like you identify as tech death and like people have to respect that? Or can people, like, can people assign, is it like assigned tech death at birth or whatever? Are these gender jokes in bad taste? It's all love, baby. It's all love. Let's see. We got Travis in the house. Yeah, Dave is also, he's known as just a really virtuosic guitar player, just in general, but especially just in the metal world, he's kind of like, I keep using the word state of the art. He's like he's a guitar hero, he's just like a master musician, colossal as a player and as a writer, a composer. And like a riff lord. It's like he's riff royalty, and he's shred royalty too. So I want to get into it with him about what it means to be to play that role in culture at the moment, because I'm so up on contemporary metal, extreme metal, but I'm like not super up on who is like a state of the art like guitar virtuoso. And it's interesting for me because, I sort of started out, like we both come out of jazz. Dave is very schooled in jazz. We'll talk about that as well, how that plays into his musical identity and work and history. So I come out of jazz in at least, in high school, I was super into it. So I had definitely had that phase of like, for me, it was a phase of just wanting to really be like a virtuoso stylist on my instrument. But then I kind of was like, oh no, I'm like more into singing and this and that. And so now guitar is just, it's just like one of my things that I do, but I'm not making a statement on the instrument. So that's why I'm interested to talk to Dave, because he really is making a statement on the instrument. That's not the only way he's making a statement, but it's like he's really gaining recognition for that. So let's see if Dave. I'm not hearing from Homie yet, but you know what? Let me check my phone. Yeah, let's see what's up with that. See what's up with the phone. Um, ooh, looks like Ron Verode is moving to well, he won't necessarily, but he's considering moving to LA. Word. Let's see. I know Dave said he had a long day of teaching today that just ended like an hour or two ago. So yeah, hopefully we'll be talking about teaching as well, because he's like a well-regarded educator as well. Yeah, I don't know. Does anyone have any questions, just like general kind of whatever questions for me? I think we just got Nico and Travis in the house. Yeah. Anyone have any bullshit they want to just sort of gab with me about? Random shit? I don't know. Past streams, future streams. Some people were kind of like not that psyched about my video about negative XP. That's such a weird jump from negative XP to Dave Davidson. That's how I'm trying to roll, dude. It's just like weird connections. Yeah, some people found it distasteful. Some people who I respect found it distasteful. That's a thing. I mean, if some jerk off who I don't care about or know has a problem with me, then I don't care. But if people who I respect and like and I've known for a while and they're fans of my work and they've been with me for years, if that person has a problem with something that I said, then I have to reconsider. I don't know. I'm not taking that video down, but I think I don't know. I may have underestimated how fucked up incels are. I made that video as a sort of because I was relieved. I was like, oh, they're not as fucked up as I thought. And then some of these people in the comments were like, no, they're more fucked up than you even thought. I don't know. We'll see. Well, maybe we won't see. I don't know. With homeschooling all the rest of the year, it's like you got to wonder, like, what are school shooters going to do? Just gonna play video games, I guess. Maybe that'll solve that shit for a whole generation, VG Guru asks, when are you releasing your Shred album? If that's a question for me, yeah, I'm not. Dude, I'm a very good guitar player as far as guitar players go. As far as shredders, I might as well be the fucking Ramones, man. I am compared to Dave, I am a fucking clumsy instrumentalist. Travis asks, what did I think of TFW No GF? I liked it. I liked aspects of it. I liked who they got. I thought it was cool how they had, like, Kantbot was kind of like the king, and then they had this sort of far-flung followers. They had, like, really obscure guys. I didn't know those people from Twitter, but they were like, yeah, they were like in the sort of inner catacombs of that shit. I wish, what I wish in TFW No GF, I wish they had like been a more critical, not critical as in negative or as in like, tisk critical, but I wish they had been a little more analytical about just certain questions with the people, like that guy had the cowboy guy had like the Confederate flag ring, and like, he's 20 years old. I'm not saying he should be like necessarily like fucked with about that, but like I want to know what that means to that guy. It's a fucking Confederate flag, dude. It's like you gotta explain that in some way in the year 2020. So I that kind of annoyed me that they sort of left that shit alone and didn't push to really see where that was at. So yeah, like that kind of I didn't like, but I liked the whole mood of it, just like the aesthetic of how they, like, the music was great. Ariel Pink and Barrett Avner, and there were some other people on that I forget. Yeah, you know what it means, lol. Well, yeah, I know what it generally means. I just mean what it means to that guy, because the kid is, yeah, he might have a lot of fucked up. He might have had a lot of fucked up racial animus, racism. I would want to hear him say that rather than just be like, hey, I don't, or hear him explain why he thinks it's not fucked up. You know what I mean? Like, Anyway, yeah. So VG Guru is asking about some stuff about. He wants to know about how Dave comes up with chord progressions. This is good. You can start front loading questions now because I will get to the questions. But yeah, where is Dave? Where's my dude? Does he? Yeah, I wonder if he's having a technical snag. Um, yeah. Who knows? No joke. I'd be interested in seeing how you come up with your chord progressions. Your voice leading tends to me think. Yeah, yeah. I was gonna ask him about voice leading. I'm pumped about Gargoyl too. Um, I don't. Oh, me. I'm so modest. No joke. I'd be interested. Okay, let's. I'll talk about me, man. I could do it for hours. No joke. I'd be interested in seeing how you come up with your chord progressions. Your voice leading tends to take you to places outside of the norm. Um, well, of course it's case by case, but I'll say this. A lot of the time, it's like I write a melody first. Most of these things are melody first, and melody first, and then bass line being a second melody. You know, that's sort of like that's a thing that I don't know. Earlier music. You know, you don't think of it as a bass line. You think of it as just as counterpoint, and then the inner voices being uh, written third, or you know, they're not like so not thinking about some of these things, maybe not thinking of them as quote unquote chord progressions, thinking of them as polyphony, 3 or 4 part polyphony, you know, which is possibly why the voice leading is taking you to places that are outside of what would be quote unquote normal for a chord progression. Um, yeah, I mean, a lot of the time when people are thinking about stuff as a chord progression, quote unquote, a lot of the time, uh, people end up doing whack voice leading, or whatever, just sort of vanilla like voice leading because it's sort of like, oh, the chord progression's interesting, but so whatever, so that's the color, but you know, without dealing with those with the horizontal dimension of like where each voice is going, you know. Um, but yeah, I mean, yeah, if you're trying to take the voice leading shit into different directions, I would study, if you haven't, VG Guru, study some species counterpoint. Um, this might just be old hat to you, and you're just like whatever. But if you don't, I mean, if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's like counterpoint exercises that basically like a method, step by step method of learning how to write counterpoint, which is essentially in the style of like Palestrina or like high Renaissance ish type counterpoint. That's what species counterpoint will get you. And even if even if you're not like trying to jack all this early music stuff the way I am, that studying that stuff can be cool because it gets you like taking a cantus firmus melody and then writing different type, you know, counterpoint over it, but not thinking of it as a chord progression, thinking of it as 4 part harmony, voice leading in a horizontal way. That will take you out of the box a little bit because that stuff, the species counterpoint stuff, it won't take you into like sorry, let me just check this out. Yeah, it won't take you into weirdo chromatic modern color world. You know, it'll keep it within Renaissance style. But once you kind of get used to that species counterpoint thing, then you can start to throw in some weird notes that are not, you know, that are outside of the mode. I have some books on it that I should thumb through. A good one is called, I think it's just called Counterpoint by the person's last name is Jeppesen. It's wait, I don't have it right here. No, it's a Jeppesen. Jeppesen. I think it's Knut or Knud Jeppesen. That's a really great counterpoint book. Another good one is Salzer and Schachter. I can't remember what that's called. Tonal counterpoint. Like can't remember what the title of the book is, but it's blue. Yeah, by Salzer and Salzer and Schachter. But yeah, the Jeppesen book is really good. And yeah, just go through those exercises. They're like, it's like fun, like writing canons, you know, like actually just trying to like render that. Um, Man, we're like losing viewers here. We got people tuning out because I'm talking about the Renaissance. We're supposed to be talking about the fucking outer ones, man. Um, Let me see. Let me see what's up with my man here. You don't do teaching, Charlie? I do. Do I do teaching? I teach guitar for sure. I've only recently gotten on the Skype tip. Hold on a second. I've only recently got on the Skype tip with teaching just since quarantine. Well, and since I moved to LA, like when I was fucking yeah, when I was back in New York, like up to a year ago, I taught at this guitar school called New York City Guitar School, where I had like a whole bunch of students. I had like 30. Whoa, is he not? Okay, yeah. I think Dave doesn't get what's going on. Uh, he says, "What up?" And I said, "We're streaming," with an exclamation point, because I keep it friendly and warm in text. Yeah, he said, "Oh shit, I thought it was 5." All right, my man's frazzled. Let me see. I'm gonna say no disaster if you can't make it, but let me see. He said, "Yeah, give me 2 seconds." All right, we can gab a little bit more. Yeah, I haven't done a bunch of like I haven't done a ton of composition, teaching composition and music theory. Usually, I that only happens when I like someone who's a fan, will like approach me or whatever, or like or write to me, and then yeah, and then usually, doesn't go on for years and years, but like give someone like a cool, chunk of stuff to think about. Um, yeah. So yeah, I do teaching. I mean, yeah, if you want to work on some stuff, we could get into it. Um, yeah. What are the other questions here? Yeah, no big questions yet. But yeah. I'm interested to hear about Dave's vibe compositionally. I mean, I hear it when I listen to the music. But I know he's talked a ton about being a technician on guitar, but I haven't heard him talk a bunch about like yeah, just how like his compositional process. Um, he's got a lot of voice leading type stuff in Gargoyl. Um, yeah, I'm pumped for Gargoyl. I saw them like maybe a year ago or like a little more when I was yeah, like right before I left New York. Um, yeah, they've got some real like contrapuntal shit happening. Yeah. What else is going on in my universe? I have not been really. I've been slowly chipping away at some shit that'll be the next Psalm Zero. Can you ask Dave about what they're looking for in a new guitar player? I know Dan just left. I did not know that actually. Yeah. I mean, Dave's gonna have to actually get me a little bit up to speed on Revocation because I know the music, but I actually don't really know like a ton about the history. Like I know the last. I know this album, the one before it, and then one of the ones from way back, but I kind of missed, a few of their records, and I don't know the whole history of like band people. So, all right, so Dan just left. I mean, this that'd be sick if you got this gig, if you got that gig through the live stream. You're like, I want a cut, man. If you get the Revocation gig, I want like 2%. Here he is. Oh, he's got a legit mic too. My man's here. All right, cool. Enough preamble. Here is the man. We'll see if like we got to make sure the sound's all good and everything.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Yeah. Can you hear me? Like, is there any weird delay or anything fucked up or?
No, not at all.
Cool. We're good to go. All right. And yeah, no one's complaining about tech stuff yet. We got This person VG Guru is hungry for Dan's gig. Like just we got hustlers here.
Wow.
Metal hustlers.
Okay.
VG Guru asks, "Can you ask Dave about what they are looking for in a new guitarist?"
Yeah. I mean, right now, honestly, like I'm not even really looking. Like when I'm just like in writing mode for the next Revocation record. And obviously, we're not going to bring in like a new guy that we don't have any rapport with at all, just to start like writing a record. So the plan is to write the record, record the record, and then really we're not even going to think about, I don't think, auditioning anybody until like we're done with this next record, as far as like the recording and all that kind of stuff. And then we'll think about bringing somebody in, for touring and stuff. But I mean, as it's looking right now, I don't even know when we'll be able to tour, with everything that's happening, obviously. So, could be a year from now, like that we might start looking. I really can't say. So, it's awesome that people are interested in the gig. But yeah, I've had a few people hit me up too, like kind of on the side, like, oh, blah, 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 I'm just like,
I'm sure, man. Yeah. Yeah. But I guess it sounds like you're kind of, yeah, like with Revocation, it's like you're either really in the band or you're a mercenary, right? I mean, it's like you're not going to bring you're not going to bring a random person in and then start writing riffs with them. That would be kind
no,
of
yeah,
bizarre. Like that.
yeah, exactly. It's not like, like for every record, I primarily wrote the majority of the songs anyway. I mean, Dan used to contribute like a couple like really awesome songs per record that brought in like a different element. But certainly with his absence, like we're not trying to like fill that writing void with just like a random person. Like I'm just going to do it all myself, sort of like I used to do like back in the day before Dan joined. So
Word. Yeah. I actually didn't know that you wrote everything. I kind of, yeah, I don't know. I guess I didn't totally get that. That's cool. So was it always? I mean, we should go deeper than me just getting band history stuff that I'm not up on. But I mean, was it your like totally your thing before? Yeah, like you just said, totally your thing before anyone came in, or was it kind of collabby? It was with you and the drummer, right? We're pretty collabby early on, right?
yeah, I mean, I wrote all the music, and then like so like when the first incarnation of Revocation, we were just like a trio, and I would write all the music. I mean, we'd collab on like certain things or whatever, but as far as like the riffs and like song structures and stuff like that, that was all coming from me. Anthony would write like probably like half the lyrics every record, and I would write the other half. And then with Anthony's departure, I just took on like writing all of the lyrics. So when Dan was in the band, he joined like right after Existence is Futile came out. And then like I had so much material for Chaos of Thorns, which was like the follow up to that. So he didn't write any songs on that one, other than like I think he put like a solo or two down on like a couple songs. And then once we did the Terra Genesis EP, he wrote a song for that one, and that was like kind of like his introduction to the writing process for the band. And then after that, like every record, it was sort of the same, the same formula. Like I would write, if we were doing a 10-song record, I would write 8 songs. He would write 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
contributed. I mean, it was great. The songs that he wrote are awesome, and like I said, I think they brought like a different sort of character to our music. But yeah, with his departure, I'm just gonna take upon myself to write the entire record.
Yeah. I'll tell you, you know what I loved seeing? I can't remember where I saw this because I only have like files of your records. I don't have a physical copy, but I somewhere I saw credited solos. There's like solo Davidson solo. I fucking love that, man. That brought me back to like Slayer, Megadeth, man. Like you want to know you compare the Marty Friedman solo to the Mustaine solo. You like see the differences, man. It's like we need more of that, man. Is that a thing? It's such a nerdy thing to latch onto, but are there a lot of bands doing that, or is that like a Revocation thing where you're like we bring it back to that?
No, I think other bands have done that. I mean, if you're to me, it's exactly what you just said, right? Like, the Marty Friedman solo versus the Mustaine solo. I mean, if you really know Megadeth's music, you can tell Friedman to Mustaine, obviously, like because they just have such like a totally different style. But yeah, growing up reading through, and like it was almost like even before you heard the song, like you look through, you're like, oh, like solo Mustaine, solo
Right, right, right.
Mustaine, solo free. Like, oh, they're going back and forth there or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. Like,
Like hyped up, and it's cool to, um, let the fans know like who's on what track. In the same way that obviously you'd put like who wrote what song, right?
exactly. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
um,
yeah, because I remember I was talking about Megadeth with someone and like and they were like, yeah, with the crediting the solos, they were like so competitive. I'm like, dude, that's not competitive, man. That's what it means to like be a virtuoso. It's like you give a shit about the statement that you make. You know what I mean? It's like I'm like that's not ego, dude. That's just like giving a shit about a certain type of expression. Like
Yeah, and
yeah.
that wasn't just a Megadeth thing. I mean, I remember seeing that like across like a whole bunch of different records.
Totally. Slayer. I mean, yeah, the
Yeah,
Kerry King versus the Hanneman shit.
yeah,
Always,
yeah,
yeah.
and like different. I think like Martyr would put that like in their liner notes, because like I forget the other guy's name, but they had a couple other guitar players, but like Mongrain was the main guy, and like it'd say solo Mongrain, and solo whoever else. I forget his name, but he's also a great guitar player.
Yeah, yeah.
Just kind of lets the fans know like what to watch out for. And then sometimes like in different bands, like guys do have like a similar style, you
Yeah.
know. So it is kind of cool to know like, oh, who's doing this right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can't remember. Did Azagthoth do that, or is he the only guy who takes solos in fucking Morbid Angel? I can't.
Rutan may have done some solos on. I'd have to like dig through my Morbid Angel CD collection.
Yeah, yeah. Figure it's pretty extensive. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like Rutan, it would probably list it, but again, that would be one of those situations where like I think you'd be able to tell like Azagthoth like right away.
Yeah,
Like,
dude, that is
that's
so
wild.
bonkers. So
Yeah,
fucking bonkers, man. I couldn't believe when I heard he improvises his solos. I was like, well, that makes sense,
yeah,
but I mean, I hadn't really thought of that, but
yeah.
yeah. And I was reading, I mean, you're very composed with your solos. I mean, not that I would expect that you would improvise them, but like I mean, don't typically like you like I mean, it sounded like your stuff was like really composed, right? Like you dial it, it's like a piece, right? Or like is there some improvisation?
Well, I would say that it's like composition through improvisation, right? So like when I write the song or write the solo section, I'll just loop it and loop it and loop it. And I'll just take different takes, and like I'm like a stickler with my solos and my phrasing and stuff like that. So I'll do like a lot of takes, and sometimes it's almost like writing a paper. Like the first paragraph is always like the hardest, but once you kind of get in, like
Yeah,
the ideas just kind of start like flowing out.
totally. Yeah, anxiety of the blank page or whatever. Yeah,
Right, exactly. But once you start to flow through it, and it can kind of set up like ideas too. So yeah, for me, I'll take like several cracks at a solo, and I might have like either all the takes or like I'll know when I'll hear something good, and I'll kind of like stop it and like listen back because I'll be like recording it like into my DAW, and I'm like, oh, that was
yeah,
cool. Like, I did that little thing there. Like let me try to like embellish that. But I'm not like sitting down with like a pen and paper or like composing it in like a music notation software program. It's
yeah,
it's
yeah,
all
yeah,
me playing it and then like hearing the stuff. Kind of similar how I would sometimes how I'm writing riffs. Like I'll have like a general idea, then I'll try to like refine it more, see what comes out. But yeah, it is more like classical music in the sense where it's like once the solo is written, I try to perform it close to the same way every night. There might be some things where if it's like a super fast passage, like if I approach something slightly differently live, like I'm not gonna like kick myself over it. It's like
yeah. No, I mean it's fun.
it's
It's
like 99% there or 95% there, and then like maybe like
yeah.
a little bit of room. But for the most part, yeah, I'm trying to have it as dialed in and like the record as
Yeah.
possible.
Cause I'm really interested. I don't know. Like, I mean, there's so many angles to talk about it. We could talk on some like shop stuff or some more like vibe shit, but I'm just really interested in just what it means to like be a virtuoso musician or to be known as a virtuoso musician and to have that be like a big part of like what people are coming for, cause I mean, there's a lot of like, in death metal, I mean, just ripping guitar players who are ripping, but they're not like, known for what I mean. It's just like, oh, that band's technical, but like people don't really like you're like a stylist, you have like you're like making a statement on your instrument, which is as a personal stylist, which is like a very I don't know, it's like a very particular thing that I'm I appreciate this. I don't know. I'm like, I
Oh.
mean, like, I don't know. Are like what, like how do you think people, this is kind of like a vague weird question, but I think we can take it here. Like how do you think people experience virtuosity? Like, because like I know like probably a ton of Revocation fans are musicians themselves, especially guitarists.
Mhm.
Like, do you have like a different, I don't know, like do you, like, you know that they're gonna have a ton to get into, but I mean as far as people who aren't, like do you have kind of like a different idea how they perceive stuff, or like do you kind of like have different stuff that you're trying to communicate to like people who don't even know what's going on, like, you know what I mean, like.
Yeah, no, to be honest with you, I try not to think too much about like the audience's like perception of music that I'm making. Like, I guess maybe sounds like a little like self-serving, but like, I try to write music for, myself first and foremost, like whether it's, just like this cathartic thing, something that I'm working on, that I've been meaning to like, it's like a puzzle, like I'm trying to solve like for myself, like, oh, I have this riff, like how do I connect it with this other thing? And like sometimes you go down a few dead ends and then you finally get it. But like for me, I know when it's right, when it's right, like it just sits with me and I'm like, okay, like this feels like, like a true musical statement, something that's honest, something that's like intriguing to my ear and, intriguing to me for what I'm working on at the moment. Like I think any musician that's really trying to develop their style, hone their craft over time, it's cool when the music changes. Like I think about a guy like Chuck Schuldiner, you know what I mean? From like Leprosy to Sound of Perseverance, or Scream Billy Gore, like there was like quite a journey he sort of went on, like, compositionally, musically. I mean, having different members in the band, like with
Yep.
different lineup changes, I'm sure that helped to inspire different ideas. But I mean, it kind of sounds like a different band. I mean, even his vocal approach like changed from like the early records to like later on. So like for me, like the things that I'm working on, the things that I'm listening to at the time, they all have like a direct effect on the music that I want to write. And I think that's why, our fans stick with us, because the music is honest. I'm not
Yeah.
trying to like write this like hit song or something like that. I mean, I know
Of
it's like
course.
there's no radio play involved with like death metal or anything. I mean,
Yeah,
like
anyway, so yeah.
there is in some small circles, but it's not like, oh yeah, we got to write that like next follow up hit to the last
Yeah, yeah, no, of course.
hit
Yeah.
that we had last year or whatever. So for me, yeah, I try to stay true to myself, at the core. But I mean, obviously, I think like as you develop like a bigger fan base, and as maybe you move to like from like, a basement show to like a club, bigger clubs and stuff like that, you start to think maybe more about the performance aspect of it. Maybe it's visual components. Like the last few tours we did in the States, we brought out like a light show and had things like that kind of, but that's just there to like reinforce the impact of the music from a visual
Yeah,
angle.
yeah.
Charlie, I don't know if I answered your question at all
Oh
there.
no, no, you absolutely answered, and now we're going in different directions. Yeah, yeah. Psalm Zero does lights now too. We
Oh,
got yeah, I got this lighting rig, and
yeah,
conveniently I had the tour cut in half by COVID,
all right.
and now I got lights just collecting dust at my parents' house. But in any case, yeah,
How
because
do you think, how like just to throw it back to you, like
yeah.
how would you like perceive like that kind of stuff? Like do you think it's like, do you think about that kind of stuff like when you're writing? Like, I mean, I know like Sum Zero, like it's technical from like a compositional standpoint, but it's not like, bombastic, like in your face, like shredding or anything like that. Like,
Yeah.
do you think like, oh, like is this gonna go over someone's head? Whether it's like a weird vocal melody or something like that, or like, or I mean, you probably like similar to me, where you're like, I don't give a fuck about that. I just want
Well,
to.
I think I consider that stuff more than I realize I consider it,
Okay.
because I'm never going into shit being like, oh, who's gonna like what. But it is weird to realize like that there are things that I think, there are things that maybe come to me that I would be like, that's not going in a Psalm Zero thing. You know what I mean?
But I think that's
But like,
different though. I think that's like, because like that's happened to me for sure, but that's more just like, at least for me, like I think getting better at like self-editing and knowing that there's a certain vibe and aesthetic that you're going for in your music, and being okay with like not every idea that I come up with has to like,
being in there. Yeah.
that's a big reason why I started Gargoyle.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. We got to talk about Gargoyle too.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure. But it's like, yeah, I mean, I used to like when I was only doing Extra Life, like I thought like, well, I'm just doing anything that pops into my head and calling it Extra Life. But then after stopping doing it, I'm like, oh no, I actually had a concept. I didn't think that I had a clear concept, but it's like I was like, no, I actually am funneling specific stuff into this. But yeah, that's different. Like when I asked you, like, do you think about how it's going to be received? That is different, right? Because it's
yeah,
like you can have a concept for what the project is with the name, but you're not. You're still only trying to please yourself. You're not like thinking about pandering to who's gonna like what and shit like that, you know.
right.
But yeah, I mean, like, do you ever think of shit that's like, I mean, just on the virtuosity tip, like, do you ever write stuff where you're like, this is actually like too technical? Because it's like I notice like Revocation is like it's technical. I mean, it's technical death metal, but I mean, you listen to way more technical shit than Revocation. I mean, it's like it's obviously not the like limit of how complex you enjoy. Like I know you like Gore Guts. I mean, that's way more like what the fuck is any of this? Whereas like Revocation's like absolutely like teched out, but it's like you could I don't know, like it's there's like grooves and there's stuff that's like just thrashes and like you know it's like I mean do you ever come up with shit where you're like nah that's for a side project like because it's so complex or like
Yeah, sometimes I mean like some of the shit like I'll like kick myself afterwards where I'm like, oh man, like I gotta play this live now. Like this is like really, really hard. Like,
yeah
especially
just for pulling it off yeah
some of the solos and stuff like that, or even like playing riffs like and like having to sing over them at the same time.
oh god yeah
That's like, can be very tricky. Um so I think like yeah, like between Gorguts and us, since you brought them up, like they're both like different levels of like I think we're probably equally technical, but like just like in different ways. Like the approach is like a little bit different, maybe. I mean, obviously, because Luke's his own composer and whatnot, but yeah, like it's more like I have a general idea of what I want Revocation to sound like, but that general idea changes like from album to album. But like I'm trying to keep it all under the same umbrella. But I think just as a musician and someone that's constantly striving to bring in new sounds and whether they be something and like I'm not trying to write to be technical for the sake of being technical, right? I'm
yeah
trying
of
to use
course yeah
technicality as like just sort of one of the many tools in our toolbox that like can convey certain emotions. Maybe like I want something to sound really like frenetic and frantic and crazy. Like obviously like technique, like having a certain level of technique to just have that wow factor, that kind of like shock and awe is critical, especially when you're playing death metal. It's meant to like hit you and like kind of like
yeah there's an actual aesthetic poetic emotional quality to highly technical music so it's
just
like
like
yeah
so I mean like whether it's in jazz or classical music, these guys are like using real technical prowess to convey real emotion. So like at the end of the day, I always want to like try to convey emotion. That being said, like when you're talking about like some of the maybe more groovy parts or parts that are a little bit more like anthemic, like some of my favorite stuff that I've written has been sort of more like simple. I think it may be like it might have a certain layer of technicality in terms of like the compositional stuff that's happening, right? Like maybe it's like a counterpoint thing that like sounds cool, but like it's not like hard to play, but it was maybe
yes
like harder to conceptualize, to like come up like once it's written, it's on a page, it's like, oh yeah, you're just moving in
yeah
quarter note triplets. But like the other guitar part that's filling in the blanks there is doing something that like really makes it pop, or it adds like a different layer to the harmony or whatever. So the conceptualized compositional sort of technicality can sometimes be like much deeper than the music that's on paper. And then sometimes the stuff that's like super fast, like that sounds really technical, is actually like kind of like more of like a basic
yes
sort of thing. Like I've showed students this before. Like I teach lessons, especially now that I'm home from tour. But there's certain like alternate picking exercises that like just sound like blazingly fast, and like a lot of students be like, "Whoa, what was that?" I'm like, it's really not that hard because it's a grouping of like six or something, let's say, but it's like 4 notes per string and 2 notes per string, and then you just keep doing that pattern.
Right.
So like you never fall into any like alternate picking traps where
Yeah, they don't turn it around and shit. Yeah.
right, you have to do like an upstroke going across a string, and it's like awkward, like weird hiccups. So like there's
Yeah.
certain things that like are incredibly like blazingly fast, and I actually realized this with other players that I really like admire that like they also do this, not for all their phrasing, but for certain like blazing lines. Like I'll ask buddies like, oh, how do you play that? And they'll show me it. It sounds so insane, but like you can kind of figure it out pretty quickly. Like, oh, that's actually like the picking is like pretty like straightforward on there. It's not some like crazy 1 note per string, all alternate. Like there's certain guys out there like that just like no matter what you throw at them, their right hand is just gonna like bob and weave throughout the strings, and they'll never fall into any of those traps. There's tons of guys like that out there. So anyway, like sometimes the concept is more technical than the the physicality of playing it, and then other times like something that sounds really technical is like easy to kind of conceptualize
to think up with. To think up. Because I was thinking about just like virtuosity versus complexity, kind of like with where like compositionally. I mean, I feel like there's almost like there's stuff that's like, I mean, there's not just in your music, but just in general that there's like things that are very virtuosic that are hard to play, and that people hear that, and there's that intensity, right? Then there's like you were talking about like harmonic complexity, right? And then there's like rhythmic complexity, which then gets into like odd meters and stuff like that. And I'm always thinking, I mean, when I'm writing, I'm not overly anally thinking, but in general, I'm always like, how do different people perceive these different things? Because like when you're talking about like really interesting harmonies, that has nothing to do with it being hard to play, but just like a weird chord, voice leading to some other weird chord. I always wonder how people hear that. Like, I mean, people who like don't play an instrument, or people that don't sit around like listening to like Wagner and shit, which is like we're talking about most people right now. It's like, do you like? I mean, sometimes I wonder, people like, oh, do they experience it as just kind of a general spookiness, or do people hear like, ooh, like that little melody thing? It's hard to know how people are experiencing. I just I don't know.
I've that's kind of like an interesting thing to think about. I've thought about that myself sometimes, and it's kind of come up when I've been hanging out with friends that maybe that aren't musicians themselves, like maybe who have similar tastes, and like like just being a musician, like you point things out, like, oh yeah, and like listen to what's happening there. And I think like a lot of people are like, and then they hear it and they're like, oh, I never would have like noticed that before, because they are hearing, like, let's just say with vocal arranging, right? Like I feel like almost like probably, and maybe I'm incorrect here, but like for your average person that's like listening to like a rock song on the radio, they're hearing like the main vocal line. You know what I mean? Like they're hearing that like hook, but they're not even realizing that there's like another like harmony like tucked underneath that vocal line that's like making it pop like that, or maybe a couple harmonies.
Right. Or even just the bass line. I mean, people aren't like hearing like, ooh, contrary motion against the bass. Like,
right.
I mean, they feel it, but they're not.
You could be, a non-musician, or, like a musician that's like, all you do is think about that stuff, and you'll still find new things. Like I was listening to Alice in Chains the other day, just in my car, and like,
best.
Like, I think whether it was like the bass in my car, like I was listening to that song Brush Away off the self-titled record. Right. The bass line on that song is like really, really fucking cool. And like he goes like low and does this kind of like walk up, and then he does this like weird like he's like kind of playing along like with Lane Staley's like vocal.
Word. I gotta re-listen to that. I mean, I know it's Mike Inez, right, for the whole time.
The melody is so cool, and like obviously like Jerry Cantrell's like guitar line is super interesting, and he's playing there's some other layers too that are happening, like lead stuff. So there's lots going on. I just like never noticed the bass. And I like really like kind of dialed in on it, or honed in on it rather, and was just like, oh man, that's like such a cool, interesting bass line. And then I started listening like really in depth to like the bass parts throughout that whole record. He's just playing some like really cool, like not super like technical sounding. Maybe this is like a
Yeah, no, but like going to some first inversion stuff or whatever, like this
yeah,
kind
and
of
it's but like but that's that kind of that's that kind of complexity, right? That's not necessarily like technical insanity, but like to me, that's the kind of stuff that like I don't know can be even more effective or more interesting. Like I said, I'm not trying to like be the like fastest guitar player in the world. Like I want to try to write music that's like interesting and compelling and that uses technique to tell a story or to keep people
absolutely.
engaged, to be surprising. So
Yeah, no, I mean, that's how it comes off. I think that's probably why people love it. I mean, as far as weird bass lines that are like, I mean, this genre, the realm of music that I keep meaning to get into, that is just, I mean, there's only so many hours in a day, is just like gospel music, like contemporary gospel music.
yeah,
That is some shit. Whenever I check out, I'll go on these YouTube rabbit holes, and I'm just like, what's up with like contemporary gospel music? And obviously, those guys are all shredders, gospel chops, like any drummer especially. But yeah, those bass lines. There's all this stuff with like the bass lines and against the organ and shit. It'll be that kind of stuff where I'm like, this isn't dissonant. Like, there's nothing in here that's like out, but it's out in the sense that I can't really hear what that chord progression is. I
right.
just couldn't tell you what the chord progression is, but it's just like, yeah, like just the bass lines that are so active and like thoughtful and shit. I don't know.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I mean it's incredible to listen to some of those guys. Like just like the shit they're laying down is like and it's so musical too.
Yeah. No, it's yeah, I mean, just like, yeah, I mean, one of the things I really like about Revocation is that on that harmonic level, it's like there's a lot of like stuff that's really chromatic, but it doesn't usually go into like an atonal realm. I think of it more as chromatic than like, like, I mean, maybe there are some moments, I don't know
Yeah,
every
there
tune,
are
but
there are, or maybe what would be traditionally known as like atonal. Like I think like the intro to our latest record, like the self-titled record. Sorry, the title track of the Outer Ones
the
has
other
like
ones.
very kind of atonal sort of sounding thing. It's like these weird.
Yeah, the
Uh,
super angular.
yeah, exactly.
Really, would you call that atonal? Because I was thinking I was hearing that as kind of more like somewhat relating to a key. I don't know. Maybe it's just because aren't there like down, right? It's like that super spidery thing, but over the like
Yeah,
sustain.
yeah. So there's
Yeah,
like fundamental like bass notes that we're hitting, but I'm not like thinking about like a mode or a scale or like or even like a series of modes and scales. It's more just like textures and stuff like that. Or certainly like on certain songs, like just like playing with like dissonance and like you know stacking half steps on one another, like just you're not like creating like a traditional chord, so to speak, but it's just like
right.
this weird like texture or something like that that just like it's like
Yeah,
grinding against itself. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's not like it's not like a Milton Babbitt
right.
composition or
Yeah,
something like that.
right.
But
I mean, or like a lot of, I mean, or like a lot of death metal. I mean, a lot of like a lot of super tech death metal shit. It just goes so fucking dissonant that it's still cool. But I mean, when stuff like when stuff, I mean, I'm not hearing anything in Revocation that just like sticks in an atonal mode for like a long time. I mean, it's there does it's like you're like dealing with color. I mean, you're playing with it, like, as if stuff is totally atonal, and this is not even any disrespect to like whatever, but it becomes monochrome. I mean, there's a uh certain monochrome vibe if it's just pure atonality. So I mean, I don't know, like I hear a lot of just colorful, even if the harmonies aren't jazz harmonies, there's that jazz psychology of like,
right,
like hip shit. It's like hip, like,
right, like you could isolate like a section of like I don't know, like a Herbie Hancock solo or like a Herbie Hancock like comping section. You're like, oh, that's like really like out sounding or like really atonal. But yeah, like it eventually resolves itself and like maybe like turns into something like super tonal and like really beautiful, right? So like I try to like take like a lot of inspiration from different artists from other musical realms for that very purpose because like the way like Coltrane plays with like dissonance and tonality and like, color, like these sort of like sheets of sound, and then how it'll like evolve into like, this beautiful like major pentatonic melody or something, but then it'll like just go back and like unleash the demons, and it'll be like, just super out there and like wild sounding. Like I always like that kind of like yin yang of like sort of like this like chaos, and then like, tranquility or like or tension and release, however you want to like,
absolutely,
however you want to call it. So yeah, like with Revocation, I try to think about like sort of the song as a whole, and then how that song fits into, an album as a whole. But I'm not like, okay, it's got to be atonal for the sake of being atonal. Like if I'm playing with those colors, like I want it to have sort of a purpose to sort of set a mood. And then I might want to like, because I'm setting up that action, I want there to be like a reaction to that, like maybe it resolves some,
Yeah. It's just like I don't know. I imagine there's like a sweet spotness. There's like a hitting sweet spots in Revocation that I hear. I don't know, between chromaticism, tonality, atonal, and the same with the technicality. That's, there's virtuosity and simplicity. There's a lot of like, I don't know. I kept using the word state of the art. I'm not just blowing sunshine up. I mean, but I'm being sincere. I just kept saying, I'm like Dave's fucking state of the art, man. It's like a state of the art metal band now. You know what I mean? It's like embracing the history and like looking to the future. You know what I mean? It's not it's not like, oh wait, is it metal or is it not? It's like, no, it's fucking metal. It's like coming from a tradition. It's
oh, for sure. And I appreciate that. That you pick up on that, because that really is kind of like the goal. It's like, every genre, every generation is kind of like standing on the shoulders of giants, right? So it's like you've got dudes who have sort of paved the way, and then like how do you take that? Like how do you take this sort of be in the confines of this genre where, like for me, like death metal, like it has to be heavy, it has to be like punishing. Like there needs to be like a certain level of technicality there. There needs to be a certain level of like speed and all that, right? To like just have that kind of shock and awe factor. But there's plenty of death metal that's like slow. So I've been like, it's been fun to kind of incorporate like different like tempos and like tempo changes into songs as we've developed our sound over the years. And I look back at our catalog, and, I can kind of hear like the things that I was listening to at the time, and or the things that I was sort of working on, concepts, and how they kind of like made their way into the music. But yeah, at the end of the day, we're working from a certain blueprint. I'm not like trying to do this weird avant-garde thing that's like, okay, well, like free jazz is going to be like the aesthetic that I'm going for.
No, it's coming out of something.
Metal, like, like it's almost like I'm not trying to do like a John Zorn thing or something like that.
Right. I mean, like that's
John Zorn, but like it's not like,
of course,
like I'm trying to do like, okay, this is like the imprint. Like for me, like metal is more like classical in that way, where it's this, it's a set thing that you're trying to perform every single night.
It's a canon,
yeah, exactly. So
I think a lot of people, they're almost like allergic. I mean, I am in a way too, but I'm not. But like they're sort of like allergic to saying that you're in a genre. Being like, oh, like don't, we're not even a metal band. We're just music, or like this isn't jazz. It's just creative music. It's like, dude, it's you got a saxophone and you're improvising. Like it's jazz. Like just embrace that you're coming from a thing, so I like that vibe, because like, I mean, even though, I'm hearing the whole history of metal, and it's like very like embracing of the whole of the past, but it's like I also don't hear you guys, and I don't hear you referred to as part of like the like old school death metal revival. Like I'm not hearing, it's not like OSDM shit, like at all, which, and I mean, no disrespect to that exactly, but I'm not interested in that shit at all. Like, I mean, as far as just like, I don't know, like new shit that sounds exactly like Morbid Angel, I just don't, it's just not my trip, really.
I think there's certain bands that do it great. For me, I look at, metal as this like, sort of timeline that like, and there's obviously different younger generations that are getting into that timeline at different periods. So like, for some kids, like, maybe like this new old school death metal band, like, is there Morbid Angel or whatever? Like, I mean, I'm a big proponent. I think everyone should do their homework and know their history for any music genre. So I think it's important to see where things came from, because nothing exists like in a vacuum or whatever. But like, seeing kids your age playing music like might resonate with you like harder, like being like this like teenager and starting a scene, and like now all of a sudden like you're touring with bands that are your age rather than bands that are like from the old guard.
No, that's true.
So like I get it, and for me it all comes down to like, do you have the ears or not, right? Like, do you have like whether you're like a trained musician or not, like, is there something unique about your compositional style that I can hear and go like, oh wow, like, yeah, these are like young kids or whatever, then they're doing like maybe a little bit of a throwback sound, but there's something like magical to this riffage here that like is just like thought provoking, and like it just kind of grabs you, and it makes you feel that nostalgia when you were first listening to like death metal. Like, if it can achieve that goal, then I think a band is onto something. And what I've been liking is sort of, as far as the old school death metal aesthetic that's been coming back, bands that like have a lot of like compositional prowess and are doing like this merger of like technical death metal with an old school death metal kind of like aesthetic, so it doesn't sound like super polished and stuff. Like, I don't know, like I just recently got into this band Cosmic Putrefaction. I don't know if you know.
I hear the name around, but I don't know.
Dude's like, he's got some really cool like compositional things happening. He was in a band called The Clearing Path too, which was like a weird black metal band, like avant-garde. And I think he played in like a prog band called Summit. I've been kind of going down the rabbit hole with death metal recently. Yeah. But like, it's just something about like, it has like this old school sort of aesthetic. It doesn't have that like super modern, like insanely crisp and clean like production where it's like digital stop on a dime like cuts. The recording sounds good, but it has that older sort of sound to it, mixed with a blend of like, I guess, like sort of modern day death metal sensibility. So I think like that trend I'm particularly interested in. Plus like the artwork and everything like that, it's always
it's
cool.
Part
like
of the mood. Cool. I mean, I like I like Bloody Incantation. They're cool, but they're not they're not pure throwback. I think they get lumped in a little bit with the OSDM revival, but they're like they have their own shit going on coming out of Morbid Angel, but it's
exactly
they're good.
Yeah. So they're taking that they're that sort of blueprint and doing their own thing with it. Yeah, it's not just like just to a T, like obituary worship or something like that.
Totally.
At that point, I'd rather just listen to like obituary or something.
Yeah. We got questions. We'll get to the questions in the comments a little bit. In a little bit. I like to just kind of riff with you for a while.
Yeah, that's what
before I don't know. I was interested in the Lovecraft side of things. I mean, it's not like number one thing that I think of with Revocation, but just because it's the new record, or it's not really new, but the most recent one, outer ones. I mean, like, does that how big are lyrics for you? I mean, obviously, I've read them. I mean, obviously they're like very like, they're like carefully wrought, and like obviously you care, but it's like, I mean, how much of that is like, I mean, do they come like secondary, or like do the vocals in general come secondary or primary? I mean,
I try to, put the same amount of thought into the lyrics that I do into the music. I mean, I want it to be like a cohesive artistic statement, you know what I mean? Rather than just like, oh, it's just like an afterthought. I think, unfortunately, for certain metal bands, the vocals and lyrics sort of are like an afterthought. It's like, let me just kind of string some words together that sound, brutal or whatever. Sometimes that's a vibe, but like, I think for certain bands, it's like, that's sort of the last thing that gets put down. For me, the music always comes first. Although I do have sort of a running list of like song titles, like in my phone. I might be like, reading like a particular novel, or it might be like a political book or something like that. Like that was actually on the Great Is Our Sin. There was a song title called "Only the Spineless Survive."
I saw that. It's only the spineless survive.
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting.
That was pulled directly from a Cornel West and Tavis Smiley book called "The Rich and the Rest of Us: A Poverty Manifesto," and he's talking about the halls of Congress and how sort of corrupt they've become because of influence and money and whatnot, lobbyists. And he said, it fosters an environment where only the spineless survives, right?
Interesting,
I was
dude.
like, oh my
Yeah,
god, I have to write that down. That's so good. And it was just kind of like compelling and thought provoking. It had a quality of a brutal kind of like metal song title, but like it was intriguing and sort of poetic to me, like in a different way. So I ended up like taking that song title and I wrote like a whole song's worth of lyrics just based off of that one. And loosely the book sort of in general.
yeah. I love Cornel West. I haven't read that book. I
Oh,
talk
it's
about
great.
talk about YouTube rabbit holes. I'm always watching these Cornel West speeches and stuff. I mean, first of all, putting Cornel West in metal lyrics is just fucking congratulations, man. Because I mean, that's not what people are out there doing. And I also, man, the thing that's cool about that, only the spineless survive, is the thing that's really cool about putting that in metal is like if you didn't know that was Cornel West, and if you didn't know, like it's almost the like inversion of like what metal, like the whole vibe of like Nietzschean, like sort of right wing ish leaning metal shit. It's always like fucking like only the strong survive, the spineless will be crushed, crushing the weak. And it's like this is kind of sick because it's like saying like no, actually the people who are succeeding are weak because they're bending over for corporate power or whatever, right? I mean, is that sort of the idea? Yeah.
And I love to sort of play with those, sort of metal tropes and turn them on their head like that. Yeah, because you're thinking like, oh, crush the spineless or whatever, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Right? The spineless one will be crushed. But
Yeah.
So I think it's fun to sort of play around with that type of, those metal themes and keep it still very much in the realm of metal, but just have a totally different interpretation of it. And then in that way, all of a sudden you can redefine what the metal genre, is all about, like for a new generation, or just kind of, I can just sort of throw my hat in that ring and say like, okay, like this is sort of my take on metal. I think everything that we're talking about right now, I think it always comes back to like, how can you be like true to yourself, right? Mm-hmm. So, whether it's in the music or the lyrics, I try to think about that. Yeah, with the Lovecraft stuff, I love horror, sci-fi. That's always been one of my sort of favorite like movie genres, and it's fun to read. Lovecraft, I think, being the sort of godfather of that cosmic horror, right? I mean, there's scholars out there that have sort of written books on Lovecraftian sort of mythology and just like in general, it's like there was ghost stories and sort of alien stories like before Lovecraft, but he was sort of one of the first people to really bring in this like cosmic scope. Like there's shit out there that's like so horrifying that like the human mind can't even like comprehend it, right?
Yeah. The idea of the outside of the human, yeah.
Right, yeah, and it's like, and it's existential sort of horror. It's like it's philosophical in a way. He actually has a quote that I really like. I'm maybe bastardizing it a little bit, but he said essentially, the oldest the oldest and strongest human emotion is fear, and the strongest type of fear is fear of the unknown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that is, it kind of rings true in so many different regards, right? Whether it's, the fear of what's happening in the future, like times that are changing, or just like a monster under your bed, and it's like the lights are out and like your lizard brain kicks in because like, it's dark and like, predators like hunted humans, back
in. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, I feel like Lovecraft is like, his shit is so, it's like so all about that it's like I really don't get sick of hearing Lovecraft in metal. Like it just doesn't. It's like I'm just always down for like just for like it's just like eternally, just that like macroscopic zooming out, where the human is just this abased, meaningless. I mean that's always been. I mean Lovecraft or not, just that always. What's up, Senum? We got some people in the just cool people filtering into the chat here. But can you see the chat, Dave?
No, I think I'm on private chat. Maybe I should go. Okay. Oh, here we go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you
It's
don't have to.
comments,
It's
and
yeah.
now I'm seeing it. Yeah.
Some people find it distracting, but
I'll probably
but
turn it off and then turn it on if I need to.
yeah, but just yeah, metal like just whether it's technical death metal or neurosis or whatever. I mean, all across the spectrum. Yeah, one of the things that to me is one of the things that is metal. One of the soul things of it is this macroscopic cosmic thing. Even if it's not about outer space, just when you're dealing with like death, time, existential shit, it's like, which a lot of the time makes it apolitical. I mean, there is often an apolitical thing. So that's why I thought it's also cool that you were kind of having some political, because to me the political means like the human in a sense, because it's like the affairs of men,
Yeah.
people. So it's like, I mean, it's cool that you were able to kind of bring that in there as well, in with the sort of cold macroscopic vibe.
I think one of the reasons I went in the direction I did with the outer ones is well, like Great as Our Sin was very much like sort of this look at the folly of man throughout sort of the ages. Some of it was like historical stuff. Some of it was um, like present day stuff. Pulling from like authors and great thinkers like Cornel West. And the title of it's "Great as Our Sin" that came from actually a Charles Darwin quote. I think it's "If the misery of the poor be not due to like evolutionary." I can't remember it exactly, but like basically the misery of the poor isn't because of like sort of evolutionary traits, but because of like our own sort of doing. Then great is our sin, right? So
Interesting. He said
yeah,
that. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. 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 I think maybe a lot of metalheads maybe need to hear that, because when I hear Darwin in metal, I
right,
think the spineless will be crushed. I think
right,
of
right.
fucking dude. Have you? We're not going on a sidetrack, but I mean, like, do you like that band Diocletian? Do you know that band?
Oh, we actually played a couple of shows with them. I think they're Australian, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Bro,
not actually super familiar with their music, but like they're like kind of like war metal, right? That's
they're war metal. I gotta say, lyrically, I mean,
yeah,
obviously, I've heard everything under the sun. I
right,
gotta say, that's the first time since I was a kid that the lyrics, I was just like, ugh, like that's fucking creepy, man.
right,
It's
right,
like actually kind of disturbing shit. Anyway,
right, right.
um, but yeah, like fuck, I derailed it with Diocletian. But yeah, yeah, no, no, you said yeah, oh yeah, right, right. Because they're
Well,
Darwin, right, 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 right.
Great as Our Sin was very much like sort of looking at the human, right? Throughout history and focused on today as well. So I almost like needed like a soul palate cleanser or something. Like I was almost getting like crisis fatigue, and I think I needed to kind of escape into the realm of fantasy for that record. Especially because I think you can sort of tell certain like anecdotal stories through the lens of fantasy or horror or whatever, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so much of Lovecraft's writing is like this happened because of human greed or human avarice. Like, someone was trying to summon something that they had no business summoning, in order to like dominate, in some other, part of their life. And then, the thing that they're trying to control ends up turning on them and, banishing them to,
Yes, yes, yes.
darkness for all eternity or something like that. So, that those types of things, I think are interesting because they can get it, like, even though it's coming from the realm of fantasy, it can kind of get at a certain universal truth.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And not everything not every song on that record is like directly inspired by Lovecraft. Like a Starless Darkness is like a sci-fi theme that I think would like maybe like fit in that Lovecraftian world, but doesn't have anything to do with Lovecraft. That's about like the theory of the heat death of the universe. I don't know if you're familiar with that at all.
I've heard the term heat death a lot, but I don't.
So basically, it's like everyone kind of assumes that like even if you're like maybe not religious, like there is this kind of nice thought that like the universe is like expanding, and then it will like gravity will take hold and it will like contract, and we'll have like another big bang kind of thing, and this kind of cycle goes on for like eternity, and it seems like you can't even fathom in terms of trillions of years and this and that, but it's like the blink of an eye basically in the cosmic sort of evolutionary life cycle of birth and death right throughout the cosmos. It's almost like kind of like a Plato Republic kind of thing, where it's like you think about like the human being lives, is born, lives, and then dies, just like societies, are
Yes.
born, they live, and then they die. This sort of notion that the cosmos are doing that too, like, and it's just sort of this infinite cycle of death and rebirth, and like how many times have we had this conversation right now, just born from another
How many
star?
times will you watch the full moon rise?
Right,
10, 20, maybe, whatever. that intro.
The universe theory is actually, there's no actual evidence to prove that the universe is contracting. If anything, the universe is expanding at an accelerated rate, more so than like they would, with the Big Bang, right? It's like not slowing down at all. So if that continues to happen, basically, like, stars will get further and further apart. Solar systems will eventually kind of go out of whack. And then, like, stars will burn out because there's no more fuel for them. And literally, like, the universe will just, like, go, like, cold and dark. And, like, every bit of matter in the universe will just be, like, put on ice and, like, essentially just kind of, like, disintegrate into this, like, I don't know, like, radio waves and, like, weird types of radiation. And, like, there's no coming back from that. Like, the universe is just this, like, graveyard of just, like, ethereal mist or whatever. So I was like, man, that's like so like talk about like existential like horror, you know what I mean? Like dread. Yeah. It's like this frozen animation, like suspended in time for eternity. So like that to me, it wasn't Lovecraft, but it kind of like fit in that that same kind of just fit with the aesthetic of the record. Same thing with a song like Vanitas. Like that was just sort of my take on. I feel like every metal musician has to sort of write a song about just death at some point.
Yes, yeah.
So that was my, my take on that.
Yeah, well, it's like those like Vanitas paintings, right? It's like a sort of like a thing that you would, as a painter, do as a
right.
This is a genre,
That was why I called it that. You know what I mean?
That's what I kind of figured that. Yeah.
Like a rite of passage almost. You're like, all right, I'm in the death metal band. Like, all right, here we go. Here's a song about death.
Yeah, it's like learning giant steps, or so, you like make your bones. My man Senum. I guess Senum. I guess you missed maybe I think you came in right after we had talked about this. He says, can you explain what things from Cornel West did you pick up that was a theme in Revocation's music? So yeah, we were talking about the song "Only the Spineless Survive." It's a Cornel West quote about people being spineless in the face of like corporate power and corruption. It's the only way to rise. And what was the book that was from? Was The Rich and Everyone Else? Or?
It's called The Rich and the Rest of Us: A Poverty Manifesto, or maybe it's called The Poverty Manifesto of the Rich and the Rest of Us. But like if you look up Cornel West and Tavis Smiley, you'll find that book. It's a very thought-provoking book, and they just look at poverty in America and sort of the origins of it and the systems that have been put in place. And like all good political books, they roll their sleeves up and they do the field work. They get out there in the field and like talk to like, people like that are suffering through different things. And so you get that real human element to the story, you know what I mean? So it's not just like, oh, like this law passed and then that's why this happened. Like, it's like, they're talking to like, it's the same thing with this new book I'm reading by Chris Hedges, America: The Farewell Tour. Super, super fascinating book. I highly recommend it. But it's like he gets out there and does that field, that work in the field where it's like he's talking to the waitress that has to work like 3 jobs just to get by, or like the janitor who like has to like stock shelves at Walmart and is like working 80 hours a week and is still only coming home with like 60 grand a year or something like that.
And
all that kind of stuff. So it's super fascinating, I think, when you add that like human component to it, because like, our brains are like meant to kind of absorb data in a particular way, but it's not the most like compelling thing. Whereas like a human, a story about like, a human struggle is so palpable. And I think engages you that much more. I really appreciated that Cornel West and Tavis Smiley wrote that book, and it was certainly eye-opening. And I just think Cornel West is a fucking national treasure. He's just
he's so warm and just such an encyclopedic knowledge of shit.
Yes, and he's very passionate. Like he's not like just like a cold intellectual. Like he's
Well,
very
he comes out of the black church, so I mean he's like a speaker as well. I mean he's an
right, yeah, he's
orator, you know. So
prophetic.
he's a spiritual man, you know, a man of spiritual
Exactly,
advancement
and
and a
I think he
speaker.
always tries to see the best in people. I don't know. I put him up there with like he's like a modern day like Dr. Martin Luther King kind of figure. I
Yeah,
think
yeah, yeah. No,
for
he
our
rules, man.
generation. Yeah.
I was interested, like, I mean, so yeah, we should like, I mean, we should get into Gargoyle. I mean, before, so I mean, like, I knew before, yeah, before Gargoyle was even like at or you know playing shows or whatever. I mean, I knew Luke. I'm not sure. Did I meet you guys together? That wouldn't really make sense. But I met both of you guys at Vitus.
Uh-huh.
Maybe not at the same time. But but yeah, I was a big fan of Luke from Thanta.
Yes,
And
I know.
what's that?
He's trying to keep that secret.
Oh, what that he's in Thanta?
He can't tell me.
Really? Oh, well, I just did to whoever watches this. Is that fucking? I'm sorry, man.
No, it's cool.
I didn't know that though.
Yeah.
Isn't it in fucking? Dude, it was on Invisible Oranges, man.
Hey man, I don't I can't even confirm that or not. I don't even know, but you know.
Wait, it's not a secret that you're in Gargoyle. That's all over the fucking press,
No.
man.
It's not a secret that Luke's in Gargoyle either. It's just Thanafaxath is like his like secret band. He doesn't want anyone to know about it.
Oh, it's secret that he's. I see. I see.
Just blew
Well,
it, Charlie.
you know, man, secrets are dangerous things,
I hear
Dave.
you.
Secrets tear us apart. I couldn't sit on something.
I was about to say too, like, don't say the band he's on.
Oh, anonymous black metal. That shit's so cringe, man. Come on, just fucking put your name. No. But no, there is nothing cringe about fucking that band, Luke, anything that guy's ever done.
He really is like he's a fucking incredible musician.
Yeah. But so anyway, like, I mean, I'm kind of interested before talking about Gargoyle. Like, what's your relationship to black metal? Like, I mean, because I feel like everyone, I don't know. I feel like when people get into extreme metal now, I feel like when people who don't know about metal, when they're just like, oh, what's up with extreme metal? For some reason, it's like black metal is the like hip thing that non-metal people know about before
Right.
death metal, and I'm always like, man, I don't know, dude. It's like you got to go for death metal. But anyway, like, I mean, I don't hear in in I always say that with black metal, I only like the top tier shit, and the top tier shit is some of my favorite metal in the world. Whereas like death metal, there's just way more of it that I love. You know, there's just way more death metal bands that actually are amazing. You know, in my
Right. Yeah, no, it's yeah. So when I was first getting into metal, like, and I think we all had our like sort of gateway drug bands, right? But I think it was just sort of the byproduct of being like that first generation that was like interfacing with like file sharing technology and shit like that. So like it all kind of like hit me at once. So I was getting like the Swedish like Gothenburg metal style at the same time. I was like getting Bay Area thrash at the same time. I was getting like Floridian death metal at the same time. I was getting Norwegian black metal and stuff like that. So I certainly, you know, have my favorite. Like I think Emperor is great. Like I actually like really enjoyed like what Emperor like became. Like I thought like Prometheus was. Like,
I was just gonna say I love Prometheus. I love how maligned and like cheese it's considered. Yeah, that like
awesome.
that like it's amazing. That like fake classical shit at the beginning. It's like better than like real classical. It's fucking sick.
It sounds really cool. Yeah, and like really interesting counterpoint.
Oh yeah.
But I'll have to like listen to that record again. And like, you know, like Immortal I was getting into. Like I think like Abath just like writes like super sick riffs. Like that's like less, you know, composed with like different counter melodies and stuff like that. And it's more just like just riffed out, you know. So I think he's got an ear for that. And there's just so many like different like the more modern sort of like black metal bands out there that I think are doing like really interesting things. I mean, Thanafaxath are fucking amazing. Like it's like just like an incredible take on the genre, and like, you know, maintaining that aesthetic, that dark vibe, but just adding in this like other layer of like sort of otherworldly complexity. Oh shit! I can't hear your sound anymore. Uh-oh.
Am I in now? You hear me now?
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, I don't know why this keeps cutting out. Fine. But yeah, just fucking Thanafax that.
I lost you again. Lost you again. I'm gonna look at the comments here. All right. Oh, cool. We got some Clearing Path and Summit fans in here. Jim Winters.
All right, we'll see. This is good now, right?
Oh yeah, I can hear you now.
All right, if it fucks up, I'll just switch to the computer mic or whatever.
Okay, sure.
Do my nice mic. But yeah, with yes, Thanafax. Yeah, so black metal, right? So I mean, you're into it. It's like just another part of the metal tradition, right? I mean, it's sort
Yeah,
of,
yeah. And I think there's some bands that are doing like really interesting things with it. Composition like like in bands that kind of combine like a few different things, like Dodecahedron, I think are fucking awesome. Like are they death metal or are they black metal? Like maybe it has like a death metal sensibility in terms of like the I don't know, like brutality of it at times, but like to me it has more of like a black metal kind of vibe, I guess, in terms of the vocals and like the drum is not like brutal like sludgy riffs or anything like that. It's like it's very kind of like these angular, weird, like just nightmarish black metal sort of sounding sections. So
yeah, this is
maybe it has a little bit of a death metal aesthetic, but bands that kind of ride that line, I think, are cool.
That's some of my favorite shit. I mean, Jim Winters asks, how would you rank the DSO records? I mean, I fucking love Deathspell Omega. I mean, that's just like that's some of my favorite shit. That's talk about sweet spot between black and death. Oof.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. Crazy compositional stuff going on. I think Paracletus is probably my favorite of theirs.
That's my favorite. The one from a couple of years ago, or I think last year. I can't remember what it's called. That shit was amazing too. Palingenesis or something.
Furnaces of
Furnaces of Palingenesis. Yeah.
Yeah. Just wild sounding shit. Like shit like sounds like legitimately scary. Which is pretty cool. And yeah, but like also really compelling musically. Like it has like this modern classical sort of riffs sometimes. You know what I mean? Like if you like were to filter certain elements of that, like in terms of like the dissonance. I always love bands that can take dissonance but like make it melodic. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like I think Gorgon's great at that. Like unlike From Wisdom to Hate, like there's these just like crazy out there sounding riffs, but they're like they have a singable quality to them almost, and I think that's what sort of makes a lot of music sort of like timeless. Is even if you're doing like the most like heady compositional thing out there or something's like super technical, it still just like hits you in that sweet spot where you're like, oh wow, this is like. It hits me on an intellectual level and also like on a emotional level,
Yeah. No, melody is melody, no matter how fucking crazy it is, right. I mean, just no matter how, yeah.
And it's interesting too, like with just not to derail, but like just always makes me think. Because I've had these conversations with like students before, where I'm like kind of trying to get them like hip to like thinking about melody in different ways. But it's interesting, like the supporting cast of the composition around it. Like you could take a chromatic line and voice lead it, and it'll sound like a 6-2-5-1 progression if you like voice lead it the right way, starting from like a certain note. So and like a chromatic line just in and of itself, you don't like hear that and go, oh, that's this great melody, right? But like stuff that you put underneath it, all of a sudden, all those like that chromatic line takes on its life of its own. So like that is always so fascinating to me, and I've gone sort of down the rabbit hole with that in different ways where I've actually like tried to make the root sound wrong. I don't know if I don't know if you've ever done that before.
I think I can. I mean, yeah, we'd have to look at an example of exactly, but I mean, I think I know what you mean.
Like weird things that you can do with these with scales and stuff like that, and just like how like a melodic idea when it's like repeated enough times, like just kind of like with like a very strong rhythm, just like kind of sticks in your ear, and then all of a sudden like you play like a note that's like right, maybe not the root, but like a chord tone, and it's like like that'll happen. Like if I'm listening to like an improvised solo, like I'm transcribing something, I'm like, oh, it's such a weird note choice, and I'll look at it and it's like, oh, it's like the major third on like a dominant chord, but like
How they
they
got there
how
makes
they
it.
got there made it sound like super like out there and bizarre, or like taking like weird altered dominant like chord substitutions, but playing like like what would sound like a major pentatonic line over it, but it's like from the altered
Yeah,
key. It's
that
all
I
it's
know
all
exactly what
altered
you're talking
chord
about.
form, something like that. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. Well, that's that Coltrane shit where you take all the altered notes and just play them as they make a pentatonic pitch
Right,
set within themselves, and then you play that. Yeah.
right, and
I
it
used to.
sounds super beautiful, but it's like out at the same time.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, when I was like a jazzer, or like when I was kind of going down that road, when I found out about that shit, I milked that too much, because after a while I was like, dude, I got to play some actual bebop,
Right, right,
like I got to like fill in the gaps a little bit, because it's
right.
becoming
Yeah,
becoming a crutch.
I heard you were quite a fucking deadly assassin at jazz, like back in the day.
I mean, for someone who didn't end up doing it, I was pretty sick. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know, like I'm not gonna say I was. I wasn't making the hang with I wasn't making the hang with pro jazz cats then, but I was making the hang with peers who went on to be like heavy cats. You know what I
Okay.
mean? Like that kind of vibe. But yeah, I didn't end up going to conservatory and stuff. I mean, but you're like a very serious jazz player now. I mean, you play. I mean, I saw some video of you playing. Was it like "Darn That Dream" or
Days of Wine and Roses,
"Days
maybe.
of Wine and Roses"?
Yeah.
Man, yeah. I was like, it was some tune that Frizzell plays a lot.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
that's how I.
I love Frizzell's like.
Oh, so
Yeah.
yeah. He plays those two tunes a lot. Yeah, I mean, it was like ripping. I mean, just like absolutely like fully happening on the jazz. I mean, do you gig? Gig as a verb. Are you gigging?
I've gigged before. Yeah. For me, I'm such a stickler about my playing, and I obviously have like a lot of reverence for the jazz genre. So like I want to make sure that if I'm gigging out, like it's gonna be. I want to have something to say, in the same way like I feel like I do with metal. So I'm constantly kind of like honing my craft, and I've done gigs before, but it's just something that it's like a work in progress for me. I'm hoping in this sort of like quarantine downtime, I can spend even more time on it, because there's only so many hours in the day in between writing for different projects and just going on tour. Like it's hard to really like shed on shit and like transcribe when you're like backstage and people are like,
It's so fucking hard. I used to be able to write lyrics. I would usually write the lyrics for the next record on the tour for the
gotcha.
record. But writing music is just that's a whole other thing, man.
Or let alone like just working on like a whole different like language, because sometimes I'll write a riff, like I'll be on stage at sound check and like some shit will just like come out because the stage sounds so good, or there's this cool natural reverb in the club, or
Yeah,
just like a vibe like, oh shit, I'm in Holland for the first time, and you're just like excited and like
yeah.
something comes out. But yeah, like sitting down, like, okay, I'm gonna transcribe like this, like, I don't know, like Lage Lund like solo, and it's just like, all right.
Lage Lunt. I don't even know who
Oh,
is that.
dude, you should fuck with Lage Lund. Like he's
Never even heard as a Scandinavian cat or.
yeah, I think he's from there, but he's definitely been living here for quite some time. He doesn't have like a super thick accent, but like I think you can maybe like hear it here and there. I don't know like what part of Scandinavia he's from, but
Yeah.
um, he's just like incredible jazz guitar player. Like,
Yeah.
but like really taking it like it's just super modern like approach. Like I was just watching like a video of him playing like on Green Dolphin Street like today. I'm just like, oh my god, this dude is just like solo guitar, like crushing it. Like insane compositional, like great technique, but like yeah, his compositional chops, like which we kind of like keep circling back to, like just like his reharm and like everything that he hears over stuff, and it's just a sense of rhythm. Anyway, I can't say enough good things about Luggerland. There's like a whole bunch of really killer, modern jazz guitar players, obviously
I'm gonna check that with the last Lund is the
Lund, yeah, Lage Lund, and then there's Julian Lage, which I would assume, do you know him or no?
I've heard that name. He's like our age, right? Or
Yeah,
your
yeah,
age? I don't know. I'm
yeah.
older than you, but
He's just like a deadly assassin too. But he's got this cool thing where he can do like just straight up bebop, or do more of like a kind of like Bill Frisell kind of like vibe. Or like he did a record with Nels Klein where they're just like free improvising kind of thing, or like there's like some compositional elements to it.
yeah, that may have been where I heard that name. Yeah,
Yeah.
and Jim Winters brings up Ben Monder, who is just like
Oh,
so. I mean, what even is that? I know he's really into Morbid Angel and shit. Apparently,
yeah.
he
That's
fucks
one
with
of
that.
those. That's one of those guys where I feel like his music. We were talking like, oh, you play jazz or you play death metal. Like he really is hard. It's hard to put my finger on what he does. Like he's probably billed as a jazz guitar player, but I mean a lot of his stuff sounds like new music compositions to me. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah,
modern classical music type of shit, with an improvisational element to it. So he's just a phenomenal,
yeah.
and
Fucking
definitely a
A.
big influence on some of that Gargoyle stuff for the
Yeah,
new.
yeah, yeah. Let's right. Yeah, I did think that actually when yeah I was checking out the Gargoyle tracks. Yeah, I was just like, oh, I bet Dave's into to Monder. I mean, how could you
Yeah,
not be?
yeah.
But yeah, there's a little more. I heard. Well, it's only just a couple of tracks, but it's that I've heard. But it's like it it's the jazz harmonic vibe is even more on display. I don't know if that's just like an obvious fact one about Gargoyle, but yeah, man, it's I mean that's like a whole is that I mean that's a whole other concept, right? I mean you're thinking of that as very very different, I assume, right? I mean then like the whole intention of the band, right? I mean
Oh, of
it's
course, yeah, yeah, definitely a different vibe. I mean, I didn't want to like have a vehicle for like, okay, these are like the Revocation B sides that like didn't make it to
yeah,
the you know what I mean? Like I wanted it to be very much its own thing. Um, and I think we definitely achieved that with the record. It's, I mean, just by virtue of there's no blast beats on the record. It's all
yeah,
singing, right? There's no screaming. So like, right off the bat, with just those few things make a huge difference. But even just compositionally, like how we're writing for it, it's just a different animal altogether, which is awesome because it's been something that like, and the older I got, and I got so much Revocation sort of music sort of out of my system. I mean, there's definitely more to come. I'm writing a new Revo record right now, but I didn't want that to be the only thing that like defined me, like as a musician. Like I didn't want to be just like, oh, like Dave from Revocation or whatever. Like I want to
yeah,
be known as like Dave. He's a musician and happens to
yeah.
play in different bands, and I don't know. I guess it's just because I've always had like a diverse taste in music. I've wanted to been craving different vehicles for these influences, like a different outlet. So that to me is like I can scratch all like that itch that all these other sort of genres that have been calling me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, life is long, right?
Yeah.
Fucking yeah. I mean, it's really like consolidating elements that like I feel like yeah. I mean, it's cool that yeah you don't like you're not really trying to plan like oh who's it going to appeal to, who's gonna like it. But I do think I mean I do think that very different people could get into that. I think I mean it's definitely yeah just this like grunge element, but it's like not in a retro way, but it sort of incorporates some of that very vocal first kind of I don't know if it's written first, but the vocal up front kind of melodic.
Yeah, no, we're writing the riffs first and like the songs first, then Lou will go in and write the lyrics after the fact. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's just like it's a different animal altogether, and it's just a real pleasure to write with Luke. He's incredible,
Yeah,
writer and super creative. I'll come up with this really weird kind of dissonant sounding like virusy style, on certain song like guitar
Virus,
part,
man.
and
Oh,
yeah,
I love fucking Virus, man. I saw them at Vitus, whatever they played. It was like 4 or 5 years ago at this point, man.
I
I'm
missed that.
like,
I was probably on tour or something.
dude, it's yeah, man. They're I mean, that's some interesting shit to like be taking a good amount of influence from a band that is coming out of black metal and but is absolutely not a black metal band, but they're like beloved by people. What band was that guy in originally? Like the class. Who is it?
But Ben's End, I think.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. I guess I never have heard that band, but that's
Yeah,
like some, right. That's like classic second wave
yeah. And then
black
there's
metal or something.
I think he's like in Or Noir too, or something like that, or one of the
Oh, is
members
he?
is in Or Noir, I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's yeah, I mean just that harmonic vibe. But what you guys are doing is a lot more like that Alice in Chains. It's almost like Beatles elements too. I mean just the fucking harmonies and stuff, which I
Right.
guess comes Alice in Chains, like channels that as well.
Yeah.
Uh but yeah, like yeah, I mean like super interesting guitar music. Not only is it not dead, but it's just getting started here, I think.
Hell yeah.
It's just yeah. Word, man. Well, I feel like I don't know. We're kind of reaching like a cadence, as you might say. I'm into going back and just checking out what if there's any like questions that we really should get to that I didn't. Um, well, yeah, without going on a huge ass like whole tangent, but just quick, maybe VG Guru asks, "What players inspire you today, Dave?" So I mean, we talked about Lund.
Yeah,
Um,
I think just go
anyone in the
down
metal
the
world?
list of guys. Yeah, like Lage Lund, Julian Lodge, I think is great. God Hexelman's amazing. These are all like jazz guys. Near Felder just put out a record, which is like really cool. He's just a killing player. Um, I mean, someone we got like Liberty Ellman. Um,
Yes, I saw Liberty Ellman play with Henry Threadgill. Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
killer! Yeah,
yeah.
he's got a really great compositional style that's like just fucking wild. That would be like so in that kind of jazz where Miles Okazaki, super interesting composer.
Wow, I
Uh,
don't know any of these cats. It's
oh, really?
crazy.
Oh, dude, Miles Okazaki is fucking killing.
Dude, I'm out of the guitar. Yeah, man.
Yeah. Those are like a bunch of like you know dudes that aren't coming from like the death metal or thrash black metal realm. But as far as that realm, like I said, I just recently was reignited my passion for it. Like, um, and as far as like finding new bands and stuff. So Cosmic Putrefaction, I think they were great. The new Umbra Vitae record, which is like Jacob Bannon from Converge, it's like his like death metal band. It's like Gunface from Converge and Charns on drums. That record's fucking awesome. It's like this cool. It's like hooky, with like weird riffs. Definitely an interesting take on death metal. The new Lantern record, I think, is really cool. They're a great Finnish death metal band.
Yeah,
And then like revisiting some old classics, like different bands uh, like Calibas. They're a grindcore band from Rochester. Eric Burke's in that band. Really like just disgusting grind, but like the music is so like interesting sounding. It's just like
yeah.
it's like super like just fucked up, but like there's that melody component to it where like, oh, I could like sing that riff, but it's just like super off the
Yeah,
wall.
I'm interested though. Actually, I mean, okay, yeah, I mean, we said we're gonna wind down, but just
Yeah.
talking about players, it's like you with jazz, you mentioned players. With metal, you're mentioning bands. So like with those bands, I mean, are there other like metal related? You know, I know you don't like to, you're modest, but other like virtuosi such as yourself, who are like an actual guitar, a player from metal bands that are like as stylists are like, you
Oh,
know what
well,
I'm saying?
sure, of course. I mean, I would say like Tosin Abasi definitely comes to mind. He might be like an obvious choice because he's such like a household name. But I mean, he's an incredible guitar player who's really stylized. Like, I mean, he sort of, you know, invented, I think certain sort of techniques that are now are inspiring younger generation of people. So shout out to Tosin. He's a homie.
What band is he from? Or he's like just a solo artist or?
Oh, I'm surprised you don't know. He plays in Animals as Leaders.
Oh, dude,
Yeah.
man. I should know this, man. I'm stepping on my dick here,
Yeah, no,
man.
he's like the sort of the Steve Vai of this generation, I would say, as far
Okay.
as like guitar virtuosos, like prog, rock, metal. They kind of like blend the.
Yeah.
Javier, the other guitar player, is an amazing guitar player. So
I actually I have heard Animals as Leaders a little bit because a student of mine he was nowhere near ready to actually learn Animals as Leaders, but
right.
that first lesson where they're like, I want to play this, and you're like, we will see if you even have the hard wiring to even do that, and I'll see, yeah.
Right. I mean, that's just very technically demanding. Like in general, you have to like learn a whole new technique. I mean, like you'd have to learn like new techniques like in order to like play that shit because he does like a lot of stuff with like thumping and tapping and stuff. But anyway, like it's like a modern, sort of stylized virtuoso. Damon Grain from Voivod. I mean, he's just all and Martyr. Like I just can't get enough of his playing. Like anything that he's on, I'm gonna listen to it. He's just fucking incredible.
Yeah.
The classic guys, like I mean, obviously like Marty Friedman and stuff like that. Those are earlier dudes, but I'm trying to think of like.
I think Dylan from Piron is pretty fucking. He's pretty stylish. He's got
he's got his own style.
Pretty much his own thing.
Yeah, I'm not super duper familiar with Piron stuff. They're great. Like every time I listen to it, it's like, wow, this is fucking.
It's fucking out. I mean, very atonal,
Super wild, yeah.
And I assume you're a Mick Barr fan, right? I mean, this almost sort of goes without saying, I guess.
Yeah, Mick Barr's great. I'm trying to think of dudes that are like virtuoso, like soloists though too.
Yeah. I mean, that's plenty. I'm just kind of because I'm sort of up on, like I was saying, I feel like I'm very up on extreme metal currently, but just certain types of like just sort of death and black metal,
like Emil Wurzler, right? Wes Hauck, like both those dudes are like just like total like assassins on the guitar. Nick Johnston, if you're thinking like rock and stuff, like he's like
what's he from? What is he?
He's like kind of like a solo artist, so like he puts out like things under like the Nick Johnston moniker, but he's like he plays like Schecter, like Strat shaped like Schecter shapes, and like his legato is like just fucking out of control.
That's always the shit, the legato-ness, man. Like
it's just so fluid.
I mean, Matheny, I don't know how you get more legato than Matheny, but obviously there's cats who are doing it. I don't know.
It's funny, I was listening to a Matheny interview, like certain people like put up like their private lessons with Matheny online or whatever. I don't know if he like sanctioned it or if like people leaked it or whatever, but it's funny because some of them they actually like bleeped out like if he was like talking about like a certain person like not being that hip. It's like
no.
Whatever. But anyway, he was talking about this. Just goes to a little side note. Just goes to like the prowess of Matheny. But he's like, like people can play a chromatic line and like it'll sound like this, and he just like plays it like straight. And he's like, I'll play a chromatic line and it'll sound like some hip shit. And he plays like the same chromatic line, but just like the subtle ways in which he's like picking it dynamically and shit. It's like I had to like stop the tape and like check it out. And like actually play it, I'm like, oh yeah, that just literally was just a fucking like ascending or whatever.
Yeah, he's like harmonizing it by dynamically like emphasizing.
It was just his pick and his touch and playing it like he would play it, and it
almost gives it changes and shit. Yeah,
it's just amazing. I think that's one thing that like I think metal could use, or there could be a little bit more thoughtfulness around like dynamics and stuff like that, like in death, like in a genre that you're usually thinking like everything's got to be on 10. It would be kind of interesting to like hear more like sort of textures of dynamics. And I don't mean like a clean part and going into heavy, but just like
but even within the heavy,
like low, like kind of low gain kind of stuff, and it up. So it really does create like a very strong like emotional effect, I think, when you play with those dynamics like that.
Yeah. Totally. I actually, let's do the one last question.
Sure.
Yes, of course, Holdsworth. Yeah, I mean it's like legato, like fucking. He's so fucking legato.
Yeah.
But Senem. Let's start with Senem's question, which was was there stuff you learned from Tomo that is reflexive of your playing or what you write for metal? I'm not sure. I don't know Tomo. Is this?
Tomo Fujita, I assume he's talking about. I never studied with Tomo. We jammed like a couple times, just like at his place, like hanging out. He's a great, funk guitar player. He showed me some cool shit. But like I didn't like study with him at like Berkeley or anything like that. So
yeah. Word.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Let's wind it, man. I think we got a ton done, man.
Oh yeah.
thanks so much for coming, Dave. It's
Oh, I'm sorry I was late. I totally screwed up the time.
it's all right, man. I've been doing shit like that all week. I actually just while we were taping, or streaming, I realized I like fucking had some other shit to do today that I fucking forgot about. But it's all good. Yeah, this is so great because like we wouldn't have hung out otherwise, you know. And I like this is like this excuse to hang out with like
Yeah.
just interesting friends of mine that I just haven't been able to to be around. So man, cool. I'm glad you're. I didn't even do the how are you dealing with quarantine question, but you sound like you're in good spirits and your fucking teaching practice is popping off, right?
Yeah, yeah. If I could, if you don't mind, I'll plug my website really
Oh,
quick.
absolutely, dude. I'll also put that in the
Cool.
in
Oh,
the
yeah.
link of the YouTube. But yeah, go for it.
Yeah, DaveDavidsonGuitar.com. I launched it in quarantine. It's got like lesson packs. You can reach out to me if you want to take private lessons. And then obviously the new Gargoyle record's coming out October 9th. So we're just in the throes of promoting that as best we can, given the quarantine situation. I hope you're doing great, Charlie. It seems like you're doing really well.
Hanging in there, yeah.
It was awesome to chat with you, man. It's been too long. I'm glad we got to sort of catch up and get into some deep shit.
Yeah,
hopefully for other people's enjoyment, our insane musical ramblings.
No. People are this shit's dude. This is media empire, man. You're getting it on the ground floor with the next shit, dude.
Dude, I'll be making some calls when you're at the top of the of the empire. I'll be calling a favor or two here or there.
Cool, man. All right. Talk to you later in some capacity.
Later, man. Peace, brother.
Peace, man. There you have it. Dave Davidson, state-of-the-art musician. Yeah, I love that guy, man. So I don't know. Yeah, I've got some good, some higher, we're getting higher and higher profile with these, with guests. No, it's not all about high profile. It's all about the content. But yeah, we've got some cool people coming up soon. Yeah, like, that's really it. That's where we're at. The shit is putting me in a good mood, man. I'm really more excited about the YouTube than I am about even writing my own music, which is kind of bizarre to even admit that, but it's actually just where I'm at. I've got like little germs written for like 7 songs, but I'm less motivated to finish those than I am to just do the next live stream, man. So, maybe this is it. Maybe this is the new path for quarantine. Anyway, yeah, thanks for those who tuned in. Senum, Jim, Nico, Travis, Mike a little bit, VG Guru. I think that's everyone that's really been commenting. All right, see you all next time. Peace.